The message came at 3:17 a.m. Earth Standard Time. At first, the night shift at SETI thought it was a glitch. Radio signals from space were common, but this one pulsed with a pattern too regular to be natural. Susan Miller, the lead technician on duty, rubbed her tired eyes and leaned closer to her screen. "That can't be right," she whispered, reaching for her coffee. The signal was coming from just beyond Pluto, at the edge of our solar system. By 4:00 a.m., she had called her boss. By 5:30 a.m., the President of the United States was being woken up. By 7:00 a.m., the United Nations Security Council was holding an emergency meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," began Dr. Olivia Patterson, her voice steady despite having been awake for 24 hours straight. "What we're looking at is unquestionably an artificial signal of non-human origin." The room fell silent. On the large screen behind her, complex mathematical patterns scrolled by, followed by what appeared to be a three-dimensional map. "It's a distress call," she continued, "and it's specifically directed at Earth." Commander Sam Wright of Earth Space Command sat in the back of the room, watching the faces of world leaders as they processed this information. He had been pulled from a training exercise with no explanation. Now he understood why. "How can you be sure it's meant for us?" asked the French representative. Dr. Patterson pointed to a series of equations. "These match formulas published in scientific journals over the last decade. They're citing our own research back to us. And here," she highlighted a sequence. "This is a countdown. Whatever they need it within 24 hours. The Secretary General leaned forward. "And what exactly do they need?" "Help," Commander Wright said, speaking for the first time. Everyone turned to look at him. "That's what a distress call is. Someone out there is in trouble." 3 hours later, Commander Wright stood in Hangar 7 at the International Space Center in Nevada. Before him was humanity's most advanced spacecraft, the U.S. Horizon. Originally built for the first manned mission to Jupiter's moons, it had been sitting ready for launch for months. "Can we make it work?" he asked Chief Engineer Joe Bennett, who was already directing teams of technicians swarming over the ship. Bennett wiped grease from his hands. 20 hours to reach the edge of the solar system. We'll need to use the experimental FTL drive. It's never been tested outside simulation." "Will it work?" Wright pressed. Bennett shrugged. "Maybe. Probably. If we're lucky." "Get it done," Wright ordered, then turned as someone called his name. Dr. Lisa Martinez hurried toward him, carrying a tablet. Her lab coat flapped behind her as she ran. "Commander, I've been analyzing the biological data embedded in the signal. Whatever sent this, they're not like us. Their biochemistry suggests a silicon-based life form." Wright nodded. "Can we communicate with them?" "I believe so. The signal contains basic language primers. They want to talk to us." "Good. You're coming with us." Her eyes widened. "What?" "I need a xenobiologist." "Hack what you need. We launch in 3 hours." As the final preparations were made, Wright stood at the window of the command center, looking out at the gleaming hull of the U.S. Horizon. Humanity had never faced a moment like this. First contact, a rescue mission, and a test of experimental technology all wrapped into one. His communication device buzzed. It was a message from the UN Secretary General. The vote was unanimous. "Mission approved. May God be with you all." Wright took a deep breath and turned toward the ship. In 24 hours, humanity would either fail spectacularly or accomplish what no other species had attempted. Either way, nothing would ever be the same again. The clock was ticking. Commander Wright stood in the briefing room of the International Space Center, facing the 5 people who would join him on humanity's most important mission. He had personally selected each one, making calls and arranging emergency transport to bring them here within hours. "I won't lie to you," Wright said, his voice firm. "This mission is dangerous. We don't know what we'll find out there, but humanity has been called upon, and we will answer." Lieutenant Ethan Powell, a young navigation expert with 3 space missions under his belt, nodded seriously. His hands were steady as he studied the star charts on his tablet. The coordinates put us just beyond Pluto. With the experimental drive, we can get there in just under 20 hours. If the drive works, said Jack Harris with a snort. The chief engineer was known for his blunt honesty. His gray beard was trimmed short, and dark circles under his eyes showed he hadn't slept since being called in. It's never been tested outside of a lab. Dr. Lisa Martinez looked up from her notes on alien biology. The data suggests the aliens can survive in environments much harsher than humans. Their biology is silicon-based, not carbon like us. Will we be able to talk to them? Wright asked, turning to Nicole Davis, their communication specialist. She had been analyzing the language patterns in the alien message since it arrived. Nicole pushed her glasses up and nodded. They included translation keys in their message. Basic concepts like help, danger, and time are clear. I'm working on the rest. The final member of the team, Security Chief Alan Garcia, stood with his arms crossed. And if they're hostile? The message is a distress call, Wright reminded him. But we'll be prepared for anything. The door to the briefing room opened, and Grace Taylor walked in. The intelligence officer carried a secure tablet and looked tired but focused. I have an update, she said. We found something interesting in the signal. Hidden data that suggests these aliens have been watching Earth for at least 50 years. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Watching us? For what purpose? Martins asked. Unknown, Taylor replied. But they've been collecting our broadcasts, studying our languages, maybe even visiting. There are references to observation posts in our solar system. Wright checked his watch. We have questions that need answers, and we'll get them. But right now, we have 18 hours left on their countdown. It's time to move. As the team gathered their belongings, Wright pulled Harris aside. Jack, be straight with me. Can this ship get us there and back? The engineer ran a hand through his hair. The Horizon is the best we got. The FTL drive should work in theory. As for getting back, he shrugged. Let's solve one problem at a time. On the launch pad, the crew made their final preparations. The U.S. Horizon gleamed under the floodlights, its sleek design representing the pinnacle of human engineering. Around them, technicians rushed to load the last supplies. Dr. Martinez paused before boarding, looking up at the night sky. Her husband had wanted to come say goodbye, but there hadn't been time. See you soon, she whispered to the stars. Inside the ship, Lieutenant Powell settled into the navigation console. Course plotted, Commander. All systems check complete, Harris reported from engineering. FTL drive is as ready as it'll ever be. Nicole Davis adjusted her communication equipment, receiving final data package from Earth, translation matrix updated. Security Chief Garcia confirmed, weapons and defense systems online. Wright took his seat in the command chair and opened the channel to mission control. This is U.S. Horizon. We are go for launch. Godspeed, Horizon, came the reply. The whole world is watching. As the engines roared to life, Wright felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. 20 billion people on Earth, an unknown number of aliens waiting for rescue, and only 17 hours remaining. Let's make history, he said quietly, as the ship lifted off into the night sky. The U.S. Horizon left Earth's atmosphere in a blaze of blue fire. As the ship reached the edge of the moon's orbit, Commander Wright gave the order they had all been waiting for. Prepare for FTL activation, he said, his voice calm despite the tension filling the bridge. Engineer Harris's voice crackled through the communication system. FTL drive powering up. All crew should secure themselves. We don't know exactly what this will feel like. Dr. Kevin Wilson, the physicist who had designed the experimental faster-than-light drive, sat beside Harris in the engine room. His hands shook slightly as he entered the final calculations. The alien's message contained mathematical formulas that helped me finish the drive design, he admitted. It's almost like they knew what we needed. Countdown to FTL jump in 10 seconds. Lieutenant Powell announced from navigation. 9, 8. Around the ship, crew members gripped their seats. Dr. Martinez closed her eyes. Nicole Davis whispered a prayer. 3, 2, 1. Activate. A strange humming filled the ship. The stars outside the viewports stretched into lines of light. Then came a sensation that none of them could later properly describe, as if reality itself bent around them. "We're in FTL," Harris shouted over the communication system. "It's working." But something strange was happening. The ship's computers began displaying numbers and symbols that didn't make sense. Time indicators on different decks showed different readings. Some crew members reported that minutes seemed to stretch into hours, while others felt time speeding up. Dr. Martinez checked the readings on her tablet. The alien data embedded in the distress call. It's affecting our systems somehow. In the communication center, Nicole Davis noticed something odd. The alien message was changing, evolving as if responding to their journey. "Commander," she called, "I think they're talking to us right now, through the signal." "What are they saying?" Wright asked. Davis shook her head, concentrating. "It's not just words. It's images, feelings. I think the signal is designed to create a connection between us and them." Security Chief Garcia didn't like this at all. It could be a trap. But Dr. Martinez had another theory, or it could be why they chose humans specifically. "Look at these patterns. They match human brain waves. What if our way of thinking is uniquely suited to understand them?" Several hours into the FTL journey, crew members began reporting strange dreams. Lieutenant Powell saw crystal cities floating in space. Dr. Wilson dreamed of equations that solved themselves. Nicole Davis heard voices speaking in a language she somehow understood. "They're preparing us," Martinez suggested, "teaching us while we sleep." Engineer Harris, who had been monitoring the ship's systems nonstop, made an unexpected discovery. "The ship is adapting to the alien data. Our technology is evolving." 16 hours after leaving Earth, alarms blared throughout the ship. "FTL exit in 30 seconds. Powell shouted. Everyone brace for deceleration. The humming sound grew to a crescendo. The streaks of light outside began to shrink back into stars. With a final shudder, the U.S. horizon dropped back into normal space. The view screen filled with an incredible sight. Before them floated an enormous vessel, at least 100 times larger than their ship. Its surface glittered like diamond, catching the light of distant stars. Parts of it pulsed with a soft blue glow, but other sections were dark and damaged. "Scan it," Wright ordered. "Already on it," Martinez replied. The U.S. horizon moved slowly toward the massive alien ship. Up close, the size difference was even more shocking. Their ship, mankind's greatest achievement, looked like a toy next to the giant crystal vessel. "Docking procedure initiated," Lieutenant Powell announced. His hands moved quickly over the controls, guiding their approach to what appeared to be an entry port on the alien craft. Commander Wright turned to his team. "Dr. Martinez, Nicole, Garcia, you're with me on the boarding party. Harris, Wilson, you stay here and keep the ship ready for a quick exit if needed." Security Chief Garcia handed out small weapons to the team. "Just in case," he said. No one argued. The docking procedure took 30 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, the team stood facing a tunnel made of what looked like clear crystal. Blue lights pulsed along its length, leading deeper into the ship. "Atmosphere reads as breathable," Martinez said, checking her scanner. "Temperature is cool but safe." Wright nodded. "Helmets on anyway, until we're sure. Stay alert. Stay together." The team stepped into the alien ship. The crystal floor felt solid beneath their boots, despite looking delicate. The walls hummed with energy. "This technology is incredible," Martinez whispered, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was seeing. "The entire structure seems to be alive somehow." They followed the lighted path for several minutes before reaching a large chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, and the walls sparkled with thousands of tiny lights that moved in patterns. In the center of the room stood three tall figures. The aliens were unlike anything the humans had imagined. Their bodies were roughly humanoid, but made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through them in complex patterns, and they had no faces, just smooth curved surfaces where heads should be. They stood at least 8 feet tall, towering over the human visitors. Nicole Davis stepped forward, her translator device ready. One of the aliens moved toward her, and a voice came from the device in a strange musical tone. "We are the Luminary. Welcome, humans of Earth. You have answered our call when others would not." Wright removed his helmet after checking his readings once more. "I'm Commander Sam Wright of Earth. We received your distress signal and came to help." The alien, it was impossible to tell which one was speaking, seemed to brighten. "You traveled across space for strangers. This confirms what we observed about your species." Another alien moved forward. "I am Sayla, ship leader. Our vessel was attacked by the Void Collective, an enemy we have fled for generations. Our power core was damaged in the attack." Dr. Martinez studied the aliens with fascination. "Your physical structure, silicon-based life forms. We've only theorized about the possibility. And you are carbon-based. Different, yet here we stand together." Sayla responded. "Come, we have little time." The aliens led them through more crystal corridors until they reached another large chamber. Here, the beautiful order of the ship gave way to damage. Part of the ceiling had collapsed, and the crystal walls were cracked. In the center, a massive column of swirling energy pulsed erratically, contained within what looked like a failing force field. "This is our main power core," Sayla explained. "It harnesses what you call dark energy. The attack damaged the containment systems. In 11 hours, it will collapse completely." "What happens then?" Wright asked, though he suspected the answer. "The resulting explosion will destroy this ship and create a shockwave that will reach as far as your Earth." Garcia stepped closer to Wright. "Commander, why us? Surely there are other advanced civilizations who could help." The third alien, who had not yet spoken, moved forward. "We sent the distress call to 12 spacefaring civilizations. All others either did not respond or determined the situation was unsolvable with the time constraints." "Then why did you think we could help?" Wright asked. "Because humans possess something the others do not," Sayla said. "You think differently. You make impossible leaps of logic. You solve problems that pure rationality says cannot be solved." The alien gestured to the failing core. "We need that human quality now. We need the impossible." Wright looked at the core, then back at his team. Their mission had just become much more complicated than a simple rescue. "We'll need to see everything you have on the core's systems," he said, "and we'll need to work fast." The clock was ticking. 11 hours to save a ship of aliens, and potentially Earth itself. In a makeshift control room near the damaged power core, Commander Wright and his team worked alongside the luminary engineers. The walls displayed moving diagrams of the core's systems, beautiful but alien in design. "So the other civilizations just gave up?" Wright asked as Dr. Kevin Wilson studied the technical information. Zella's crystalline body dimmed slightly. "The Arcani said the problem was mathematically unsolvable in the time frame. The Vex calculated a 99.8% chance of failure and refused to risk their people. Others simply did not answer." Engineer Harris ran his hand over a crystal control panel. "They weren't wrong. This technology is way beyond us. The core manipulates dark energy in ways we've only dreamed about. But that doesn't mean we can't fix it," Wilson said, not looking up from his calculations. "We just need to think about it differently." Dr. Martinez had been examining samples of the luminary ship's structure. She looked up suddenly. "That's it. The difference is in how we think. The luminary, their very bodies are crystalline. They store and process information in precise, structured ways. Like living computers," Nicole Davis said, understanding. "Perfect logic." "Exactly," Martinez continued. But humans are messy. We use intuition. We make creative leaps. We work well under pressure because we evolved as survivors. Security Chief Garcia, who had been checking the perimeter of the damaged section, returned with news. "Commander, I found something you should see." He led right to a damaged corridor where the crystal walls had been deliberately cut. "This doesn't match the damage pattern from the outside attack. Someone on the inside did this." When they returned to the control room, Wright pulled Exala aside. "We may have a saboteur on board. Someone who wanted the core to fail." Zela's light patterns changed rapidly, their equivalent of distress. "There is a faction among our people, the Solitaries. They believe we should not contact other species. They think outsiders bring only danger. And they'd risk everyone on this ship to prove their point." Wright asked. "They believe that death is preferable to the corruption of our culture," Zela explained. "I had hoped they would not go this far." Wright nodded grimly. "Garcia, organize security sweeps with the loyal Luminari. We need to make sure no one interferes with our work." Meanwhile, Wilson and Harris were making progress. "The core isn't completely failing," Harris explained to the others. "It's more like it's out of balance. The energy is flowing unevenly." "Like a wobbling top," Wilson added. "We need to stabilize it before it falls completely." "Can we do that with our technology?" Wright asked. "No," Wilson admitted, "but maybe with a combination of ours and theirs." He pointed to diagrams on the wall. "The Luminary technology is precise but rigid. Ours is more flexible. If we link our ship's systems to theirs, we might be able to create a feedback loop that could gradually stabilize the core." "Has this been tried before?" Martins asked. "Never," Wilson said. "It's theoretically possible, but the timing would have to be perfect. One mistake, and the core collapses immediately." The Luminary engineers were communicating rapidly among themselves, their bodies flickering with light patterns. One of them stepped forward. "Your approach is unexpected. Our calculations did not consider this possibility." "That's why you needed humans," Martins said with a small smile. "We specialize in the unexpected." Wright looked at the displays showing the core's deterioration. "How long would we need to implement this plan?" 8 hours to set up the connection between the ships, 2 hours to run the stabilization sequence, Harris estimated, with no room for error. "That leaves us 1 hour of safety margin," Wright noted, checking the countdown. "Not much." Zela's body brightened. "More than we had before you arrived." Wright turned to his team. "Wilson, Harris, start the technical preparations. Martinez, work with the Luminary to understand how their biology might help us. Nickel, we need a communication system that lets humans and Luminary coordinate perfectly. Garcia, keep hunting for saboteurs." As everyone moved to their tasks, Wright stood for a moment looking at the damaged core. The fate of thousands of Luminary, and possibly Earth, rested on their ability to do what 12 other advanced civilizations had deemed impossible. But then, humans had always specialized in achieving the impossible. It was practically a species trait. 6 hours remained on the countdown. The U.S. horizon was now physically connected to the Luminary vessel by thick cables that Harris and Wilson had designed. Energy flowed between the two ships as humans and aliens worked side by side. "The interface is holding," Harris reported, wiping sweat from his forehead. The temperature near the core had risen dangerously as the containment field weakened. On the bridge of the horizon, Lieutenant Powell worked with 3 Luminary pilots to calculate the precise sequence they would need to follow. "The timing has to be exact," he explained. "When we send the energy pulse, the Luminary side needs to channel it through exactly the right pathways. Like threading a needle while riding a motorcycle," Wilson added, not looking up from his calculations. Nickel Davis had created something remarkable, a hybrid language that combined human words and Luminary light patterns. She stood between the teams, translating complex technical concepts that had no direct equivalence between their languages. "They don't have a word for it, intuition," she told Wright. I had to create one by combining their concepts for knowledge without source and truth feeling. Meanwhile, Security Chief Garcia and a team of loyal Luminary guards patrolled the critical areas. 3 hours earlier, they had caught 2 saboteurs attempting to cut the power cables. The solitaries were growing desperate. "Commander," Garcia called over the communication system, "we've received reports of more solitary activity in the lower decks. They're trying to reach the secondary control room." Wright had to make a difficult decision. "We don't have enough people to guard every approach. We need to focus on protecting the core and our connection points." "What about the civilians in the lower decks?" Martins asked. Thousands of Luminary families lived in those sections. Wright's face was grim. "Hexela, can those sections be sealed off temporarily? Maybe even separated from the main ship if necessary?" The Luminary leader's lights pulsed rapidly, their version of distress. "It is possible, but we would be abandoning many of our people." "Not abandoning," Wright insisted. "Protecting the majority. If the core explodes, everyone dies. At least this way, we save most of your people." After a moment of internal light patterns that humans couldn't read, Sela nodded. "I will give the order. The needs of the many must prevail." With 4 hours remaining, the team was ready to begin the stabilization sequence. The plan was daring. They would use the Horizon systems to create a controlled energy surge, which would reset the Luminary core's resonance patterns. Then, a precisely timed series of adjustments would bring it back to stability. Like restarting a heart, Dr. Martinez explained to the Luminary scientists. Sometimes you need to shock it before it can beat normally again. This will require someone to manually adjust the crystal focusing arrays inside the core chamber, one of the Luminary engineers said. "The radiation levels there are lethal to us." "To humans too," Harris said quietly. "But we can last longer than you can." Wright looked at his engineer. "What are you saying, Jack?" "I'm saying someone needs to go in there and make the final adjustments by hand. The suits will give about 15 minutes of protection. The job takes 10. That's cutting it close, but doable." "I'll go," Wright said immediately. Harris shook his head. "With respect, Commander, you're needed to coordinate. This is a technical job. It should be me or Wilson." "I designed the interface," Wilson said. "I need to monitor it from here." "Jack is right. He's the one who should go." Wright wanted to argue, but they had no time. "All right, but you follow the protocol exactly. At the first sign of suit failure, you get out, job finished or not." Harris nodded, but everyone knew he wouldn't leave until the work was done. As the engineer prepared, Wright gathered the team for one last briefing. The plan required both human intuition and Luminary precision. Each species had strengths the other lacked. Together, they might just achieve the impossible. 3 hours left, Powell announced. "Let's do this." The final phase of the mission had begun. Engineer Jack Harris moved carefully through the core chamber, his radiation suit glowing under the blue light of the failing power core. Every step had to be perfect. Every adjustment had to be timed exactly. "How are the readings?" he asked through his communication system. "Radiation is at critical levels," Dr. Martins replied from the control room. "You have 12 minutes before your suit fails." Harris nodded, though no one could see him. "The job takes 10. I'll be fine." Outside the chamber, the combined human Luminary team watched anxiously as data flowed across screens. Lieutenant Powell counted down the sequence timing while Mikkel Davis translated between the teams. "Energy surge ready on the horizon," Wilson reported. "Core reset in 3, 2, 1, now." A pulse of energy shot from the human ship into the Luminary vessel. The lights throughout the alien craft flickered, then went dark for a terrifying moment. In the core chamber, Harris felt rather than saw the energy wave pass through. The massive crystal structure before him shuddered. "Phase 1 complete," he reported, moving to the main control array, beginning manual adjustments. His hands worked quickly. adjusting crystal rods according to the pattern Wilson had calculated. Each move shifted the energy flow slightly, bringing the unstable core closer to balance. In the control room, Wright watched the countdown timer. 52 minutes until the predicted core collapse. Harris had 8 minutes left in his suit. Everything depended on what happened in the next few moments. "Something's wrong," Wilson suddenly said, pointing to readings on his screen. "The energy flow is still unstable in Section 3. Zela's lights pulsed rapidly. The pathways must be physically damaged. Your engineer will need to reroute through the secondary systems." "Harris, did you hear that?" Wright asked through the communication link. "I heard. Already on it." Harris's voice was strained. The heat in the chamber was extreme, even through his suit. "But I'll need more time." Martinez checked her readings. "Jack, your suit integrity is failing. You have maybe 5 minutes." "The job will take 7, Harris replied calmly. "Good thing I work well under pressure." As Harris raced to complete the adjustments, Security Chief Garcia burst into the control room. "Commander, we caught the leader of the Solitaries. He was trying to overload the separation mechanisms." Wright nodded grimly. "Keep him secure. We're almost there." Back in the core chamber, Harris reached the last set of crystal rods. His vision was beginning to blur from the radiation, but his hands remained steady. "Final sequence commencing," he reported. "Stand by." As he turned the last rod into position, a wave of energy pulsed through the core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the erratic patterns began to smooth out. The violent fluctuations calmed. "It's working," Wilson shouted from the control room. "The core is stabilizing." Harris stumbled away from the control array, moving as fast as he could toward the chamber exit. Martins and Garcia were waiting for him there, helping him out of the contaminated suit. "Did we do it?" Harris asked weakly as they supported him. "See for yourself," Martins said, pointing back toward the core. The massive energy structure was now pulsing with a steady, even rhythm. The dangerous fluctuations had disappeared entirely. Throughout the ship, lights returned to full brightness as systems came back online. As Zela approached Wright, the luminary's crystal body glowing with bright, clear light. "Commander Wright, you and your crew have done what 12 other civilizations deemed impossible. You have saved my people." "We did it together," Wright replied. "Humans and luminary." "Indeed, and perhaps that is the greatest lesson here." Zela's light patterns shifted to a formal configuration. "The Luminary Council has authorized me to offer you something. Knowledge, technology, an alliance." Wright smiled. "I think Earth would be very interested in that alliance." As the U.S. Horizon prepared to return home, they received a surprising message from Earth. Other alien civilizations had made contact with the United Nations, suddenly interested in the species that had succeeded where they would not even try. In the medical bay, Harris was recovering from radiation exposure. Martinez had already begun treatment that would ensure his full recovery. "Not bad for a day's work," he joked weakly. 24 hours, Powell corrected him. "We did it in exactly 24 hours. On the bridge, Wright looked out at the stars, thinking about what they had accomplished. In just one day, humanity had not only made first contact, but had solved an impossible problem, saved an alien civilization, and opened the door to humanity's place among the stars.